Recognizing quorum, I'm calling this meeting. Can we do something about that?
Yeah.
Thanks. Just give me a second. Sorry for the false alarm.
Somebody said it. You can sit there. I was just not sure. Keep going. There. How are you?
Oh, yeah, he's right here. So we have this kind of feedback that it's going to make me very self-conscious for the entire meeting if we don't deal with it. Can I sum it up?
One, two, three.
Okay, so I'll use yours until we Okay, how's this? I think it's me. What is it about me that's doing this?
Is it if you are back a little bit?
That's it, but then people can't hear me. Let's keep going. Yeah, I think I'm just too close, okay. Let me try again. Recognizing quorum, I am calling this meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order at 12:04 p.m. on February 21st, 2019. First of all, can I ask, can people in the back hear me? Great, thank you. Second, can I ask, is anybody recording this meeting? Let me put the public on notice this meeting is being recorded. Let me please ask people to turn your cell phones off or put them on silent or vibrate. Thanks. A couple of just logistics comments and then we'll get started. First of all, I want to thank the Health Policy Commission as well as the Department of Transportation for their hospitality for previous meetings, but I'm so happy to be back at the Gaming Commission, so thanks to the Gaming Commission for their hospitality. We do have a hard stop at 3 p.m. I think we'll get done long before that, but we do have a hard stop at 3 p.m. Let me go through the agenda, which is going to look pretty standard for those of you that have been to other meetings. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve from our last 2 meetings, so upon approval we'll be caught up in terms of all of our minutes. There is one addition to the Executive Director's report, so we do have one job description, Mr. Executive Director. We have his standard summary of statistics with respect to licensing and application. We took responsibility for the medical marijuana program from the Department of Public Health as required by legislation. A little over a month ago, I've asked the Executive Director, as part of his report this week, to just give us a status report on how that transition is going. I know from a patient service standpoint, I think we have accomplished our objective with respect to no disruption to patient services, but I've asked the Executive Director to just give us a little bit more perspective on how that transition is going. So that will be in his report today, and maybe not every meeting, but on an ongoing basis, I will ask him for that update. We have 3 final licenses that the staff will make recommendations on, all for one entity, but 3 separate licenses, and then we have 5 provisional licenses. So we'll go through that, and I believe Mr. Bachman, you're going to lead us through the provisional conversations, and the Executive Director will lead us through the final licenses. There are 2 topics for commission discussion and potential votes on. One is a request from the Executive Director to authorize him to bring in some help on internal controls, and I think that's actually an incredibly important thing for any organization, whether it's public or private, to have very clearly thought out plans and processes for internal controls. So I commend the Executive Director for raising this issue, so we'll talk about that. And then Commissioner Title has requested that we discuss the status of our social equity programs, not just the program run, but where we are with respect to the commitments we have made with respect to diversity and with respect to ensuring that those who reside in communities disproportionately impacted by previous marijuana law enforcement are full participants in the industry. And so Commissioner Kyle's requested that we have a discussion on how we're doing versus those incredibly important mandates. So she'll lead off with some thoughts, and then I'm looking forward to having a thorough and comprehensive conversation about where we are and how we're doing versus those mandates. Is there anything that any of the commissioners would like to raise as additional agenda items? Great, so that's it, and as I said, we have a hard stop at 3, so I'm hoping that we get done well before that, but we'll take as long as we need to. Let me start with the first item on the agenda, which is minutes from 2 previous meetings, starting with January 24th, 2019. Can I ask the commission, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from January 24th, 2019? Are there any questions or comments? Then can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes from January 24th, 2019?
So moved.
Got a second? Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show we have Commissioner Russell approve the minutes from January 24th, 2019. Next set of minutes were from February 7th, 2019, our last meeting. Can I ask the Commissioner if you had a chance to read those notes? Are there any questions or comments? Then can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes from February 7th?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the commission unanimously approved the minutes from February 7th, 2019, so we were caught up. Andrew, thank you very much for your hard work on this. And we'll see if we can make this meeting really difficult for you for the next set of minutes. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's report. Mr. Executive Director, starting with a new job description.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, there's a job description before the Commission for your consideration. The description of the title of the job is a project manager. At this time, I'm seeking that it, or my intention would be to report to the Chief Technology Officer and fall within our technology department. As you know, there's a lot of different projects that have been swirling around the Commission. I think a lot of really well-intentioned ideas and plans. And this job, I think, will help us facilitate those and really traverse a lot of different departments, but a lot of the ideas and concepts that we have are technology-based, including the continued evolution of our cannabis industry portal, Mass CIP, our open data project, which is ongoing and moving and progressing nicely. We are certainly intending to build out 2 different facilities, one in Worcester, one just down the street here in Boston. And there's other projects as well. I think this role at this time makes a lot of sense as we continue to build out our team, but also because we are building out different departments, there needs to be someone responsible for managing individual projects, which I think will allow us to facilitate and really coordinate those efforts, but not distract from the other day-to-day activities that the staff might be working on. And again, what we've done to date, I think, has been pretty admirable, if I can say so myself, but it hasn't been well. It hasn't been well coordinated across different departments, and I think this will help us facilitate that. And I think, again, the time is right now to start thinking about project management as a comprehensive role here at the Commission, making sure that we can do it in a common sense way, and but also set some realistic expectations around project ownership. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Commission? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I second that the efforts so far have been admirable, and I second that we definitely need this job position. I apologize if I am veering into the dreaded wordsmithing territory, but I have a comment just on the bullet point knowledge of commission's mission standards and goals. Is there a reason why it's knowledge of and not commitment to?
No.
Is that something we can change?
It's been a while since you've done this, so I've missed asking you my favorite question, which is lawyer or non-lawyer?
See what the pool brings us. I'm not opposed to adding more attorneys to the position.
Okay.
I should, similar to previous concerns as well, this is a role that has been budgeted.
Yeah, that was my next question, so that is in our budget. So, no comments or other questions? And can I, we need a motion to approve the job description. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And the motion, not just to be explicit, the motion is to put job description subject to the suggested edit from Commissioner Kyle. Approved motion was made by Commissioner Doyle, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the commission unanimously approved the job description. When will this be posted, Mr. Executive Director?
Looks like next week.
Any other job descriptions or new staff members?
Not today.
And let's get into your update on licensing and applications. Well, that's how to make yourself known.
Wasn't intentional.
Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate the warm welcome.
I'm sorry, Mr. Executive, for that rude interruption.
Quite all right. As you see, again, a high-level review of the industry portal is that there's 2,773 total applications that have begun or been opened. There were 303 of them are pending with at least one part or one packet of the application having been submitted. 192 have been withdrawn, and 2,166 remain incomplete. And the breakdown by category is on the right-hand side table. This next slide indicates that there are 292 applications that are currently under review, with all 4 packets having been submitted. Again, the breakdown's on the left-hand side. It indicates a difference of 14 new applications since the commission's last meeting. Of those, 137 are RMD priority 4, are economic empowerment priority, and 151 are general applicants. Of those 292, they represent 150 separate entities.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
This slide here indicates the DBE status of those 292 applicants. Again, those applicants that have submitted all 4 packets. Again, you'll see the 252 have not identified as a DBE, 9 is women-owned, 3 is veteran-owned, 7 is minority-owned, 4 is LGBTQ-owned, 1 is disability-owned, and 16 have identified as more than one. Again, comprising the 292 that have submitted all 4 packets.
Questions?
This slide here indicates of those 292 where they stand as far as our process is concerned. There are 88 that are awaiting review. Of course, that includes the 14 new in the past 2 weeks. There are 52 that have been reopened but require additional information, are therefore deemed incomplete. 34 are awaiting a third-party response. Again, the third parties in this context are the background check vendor or the municipality within which the licensing intends to be located. 6 are awaiting the commission's consideration today. To date, 112 have been considered, therefore provisionally or final licensed by the commission.
Questions? Thank you.
This map here indicates those 292 applications and where they intend to be located across Massachusetts based on county. And in usual form, I'll indicate where the difference of those 14 hail from. There's 2 from Berkshire County, 1 from Hampshire County, 1 from Hampden County, 4 from Worcester, 2 from Middlesex, 2 from Suffolk, 1 from Norfolk, and 1 from Barnstable, representing the 14 new applications from the last meeting.
Thanks.
This map here is a breakdown of the retail applications that are pending across the Commonwealth. And again, there's 5 new retail applications that are within that 14 new total applications. There's 1 from Hampshire, 1 from Hampden, 1 from Worcester, 1 from Norfolk, and 1 from Barnstable, representing the 5 new from the past 2 weeks.
Thank you.
These next few slides indicate agent applications or registrations where they've, and the status of those applications. There's 3,446 total agent applications. 387 are pending before the commission. 241 have been withdrawn. 631 are incomplete. And to date, 2,100 have been approved. Of those 387, 318 have not yet been reviewed. 64 have been reopened requiring additional information. 5 are waiting a third-party response. Third-party response in this context is for laboratory agents and fingerprints. And of course, because they're approved on an ongoing basis or a rolling basis, there are 0 that are pending waiting.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. John, thank you.
This additional slide here, again, pending relative to approved or pending agents, so the 2,487. You'll see here that 67.1% identify as male, 32.4% identify as female. 10 individuals have declined to answer, 2 individuals have identified their own gender.
Thanks.
Related demographic information is the race or ethnicity of those pending or approved agents. Again, you'll see that 72.3% identify as white, 6% as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish, and 12.7% have declined to answer. And again, all this information is as shared with the commission or disclosed to the commission.
Thank you. Next, update on social equity program.
That's correct. So there's 259 applications. 137, however, have been submitted and completed and now pending review. 122 remain incomplete. The table on the right-hand side extracts some demographic information as identified by the applicant, where you'll see that 97 are identified as male, 40 as female. Then we also ask veteran status, farmer status, and again, some race or ethnicity context. Also, we ask if they are an economic empowerment applicant, certified applicant as well.
And for the 122 incomplete, are we reaching back out to those applicants and trying to help them complete their application?
They've just not submitted to us yet.
Oh, they have not submitted.
So it's not as if we reviewed it and deemed it to be incomplete, it just hasn't
Okay.
has not yet been submitted to us.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Questions?
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wright.
Of the economic empowerment, do we know how many of the social equity applicants have one or more packets completed on the economic empowerment piece? So, does that make sense?
I think so. So the question is.
Have they completed one or more packets in our application?
For license. It's something we could reconcile. It's not something that we would intuitively be able to just extract, but it is something we could reconcile based on identifying information. So it's
Can we
something
ask
we
you
could.
for an update of that for our next meeting, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? This one social equity program?
So this is also additional information relative to the social equity program applications that are pending, and which track folks have identified as being of most interest or pertinent to them. You'll see that the majority have identified entrepreneurial as being the most relevant or interest to them. 18 have identified re-entry or entry level. 7 have identified as core or sought a core track, and 12 as ancillary.
So based upon the RFP process that we talked about at our last meeting, we'll be able to accommodate this distribution of interest?
Absolutely. Based on both track as well as geographic location.
Okay, good. And then, yeah, do you have any sense of geography in terms of how, is this distributed pretty evenly across the state, or do you have any sense at all of that?
Without relying
I didn't ask
heavily
for that
on
information, so I apologize for throwing it at the last minute, but.
So my understanding, and I guess without having extracted this data, my understanding is it's predominantly Suffolk County. But that's something we can provide that information.
Yes, I do want to make sure this is a statewide effort. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Suffolk County weighted initially, but I appreciate an update on that at our next meeting, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anything else on licensing? Then I think before we get into the pending license applications, if you would lead us through a conversation of kind of your observations on status of the medical program in the, I guess, 6 weeks or so since it's been under our jurisdiction.
So to your point, there's been just over a month, or actually nearly 2 months at this point, since the transfer of the medical use of marijuana program to the commission. As you know, there's really 3 subsets or kind of departments within that program. There's the applications and registration team, there's the compliance officers, and the patient support center. Things continue as I see them and observe them, continue to function on a daily basis. As you know, there's a number of different projects we'd like to embark on relative to that program, mostly with an objective of transitioning or integrating that program more meaningfully and fully with the ongoing adult use program. So there's a lot of overlap between what that program has historically done and what we have built here at the commission. I will confess, I think we've been the beneficiary of a lot of that overlap as far as our initial build out of the adult use program here. And I would like to maintain that spirit, but also identify efficiencies where possible. So, and I'll kind of discuss each of those departments or each of those segments of the program and identify again where I think there's a lot of opportunity for really, again, integration or kind of a full embrace between the two programs. So the first, I think, is the compliance officers. There are 9 compliance officers that are assigned to the medical use of marijuana program. The first thing that we did was took a look at workload and kind of the balance of, I'll call them accounts or assignments, and identified that there was not a, at the time it was a mixed review as far as some folks had many accounts or assignments, other folks not so many, but that was based on staffing levels as well.
So are they housed at 99 Chauncey, or do they work remotely based upon the area of the state they're covering?
They are the entire program remains headquartered at 99 Chauncey Street for the time being. There is obviously an objective when the commission outgrows this space, as I believe that we have already. When we do embark on Worcester or Boston to make that, again, a cohesive unit across the entire agency. But for the time being, they are housed and headquartered at 99 Chauncey Street. Those compliance officers, the real rationale for the mix, the case mix or the assignment mix is really due to fluctuating staff over a period of time, and also that facilities being larger than others and trying to balance that. So what we've done is we've kind of reallocated those assignments to make sure it's efficient and it's kind of evenly distributed, and then also requested just that there be unannounced inspections that be conducted across Massachusetts to the 49 currently FCR'd and open for sale, so dispensing RMDs across the Commonwealth. Since the transition, we've done 23 unannounced inspections. Some of them have resulted in no findings, others have resulted in some findings or deficiencies. And in that context, try to identify, again, efficiencies between the inspectional response that we may provide to an adult use licensee versus an RMD, again, some being co-located as well. So I think we've gotten a good handle on our approach to the compliance officers' work in trying to distribute that work across the entire program or department. I mentioned previously the applications team. There are 3 folks that are assigned to the applications team. There's one kind of department head, so to speak, and then 2 folks that are supporting her. What we've done to date, I think, is really tried to get a handle on the types of questions that we ask in our application versus the types of questions that have historically or previously been asked in the context of medical use of marijuana program applications, and also trying to work through a regulatory process to identify efficiencies or similarities or harmony, I would say, between the 2 programs. But similarly is the application process historically was not subject to a public commission consideration. And so my intention would be that in relatively short order, I return to the commission with PCR, so provisional certificates of registration, or final certificates of registration materials for your consideration. My hope is that the format for that consideration will be similar to the materials that we provide for your consideration today, which includes an executive summary of the application, but also all of the application materials that you may want to review being available to you. Because that is currently a paper-based application process, it is a manual process as far as reviewing it and scanning it and making sure that it's available, whereas now we're able to extract data relatively easily from the portal.
Do you have a sense of the scale of the queue for FCRs and PCRs? If you don't,
Sure, I guess order of magnitude, yes. I would say that the PCR is probably less than 100. And I understand that there were, I think, 5 or 6 applications that have come in the past, let's say, 6 months. So it's not the state or the steady state that we are seeing here at the Commission for Adult Use, but applications are coming in. And I think also, again, an admirable job of that team for evaluating it as they have and preparing. I think the 49 that are open, it's important for context to understand that those, or to remind folks that those are vertically integrated entities as well, so the equivalent of essentially 3 licenses or more through an RMD would be the adult use perspective. So they've done.
Cal's not working hard enough. So there's more work.
Your words, not mine. So I think I mentioned earlier in the context of the project manager role, something I would like to entertain is how best to accommodate that paper-based application and move it to our portal to therefore allow us to, again, harmonize and streamline our process. And I think long-term, that's where we'd ultimately like to be. But as you indicated, Kyle and his team are certainly busy. So
Yeah, I was kidding. It's incredibly hard.
So too are the folks working on the medical use of marijuana R&D applications. So with all of that going on, I think there's a real desire to again, sit down between Kyle and the folks working there to identify what are we asking, what are they asking, what are they historically asked, and how can we try to streamline that process a bit. So that's something that's going on as of now, and again, thinking through how we might present applications for the commission's consideration in an efficient but productive way to make sure that you have the information you need to evaluate them to the same extent that we're doing that here on our side. And lastly is the Patient Support Center. That is the equivalent, I think, of many different things. It's really patient registrations, provider registrations, caregiver registrations, but also interacting with patients, providers, and caregivers on a daily basis.
How big is that staff?
That is a staff currently of 5 patient support center employees plus 1 manager, and then rising up to a deputy director of the program. So those folks are dealing with a lot of interactions on a daily basis. They're averaging about 300 or so calls per day, but they've also processed a sizable amount of recommendations or certifications, excuse me, or renewals. So their kind of volume is pretty aggressive. So there are 288 providers that are registered with the program today. They did about 5,400 total applications, and again, that's new patients, new caregivers, and renewals for patients and caregivers over the course of the last month. So that volume, I think, is pretty significant for a pretty small team overall. And so I think long-term, something again we'd like to do and consider, and again, I'll reiterate the importance of a role like a project manager, is to think about things like the virtual gateway, the patient portal. Right now, the way it operates, again, with the mindset of making that program change or lift and shift, and making sure there was little disruption, is that we maintain the virtual gateway, which is a chargeback through the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, but it's something therefore that we don't own like we do the the Cannabis Industry Portal or the CDCL tracking system. So it's something I'd like to explore long term. I obviously would like to bring back a plan for the commission to review and evaluate, but that's something we'd like to work with collaboratively, that program as well. So I think that's a very high level snapshot. I think it's been a process we've learned a lot, again, from each other, and it's something, again, that long-term we'd like to continue to integrate and harmonize between the 2 programs under the one umbrella of the Cannabis Control Commission.
Thank you for that. Are there questions for the executive director? Commissioner Frye?
Would it be possible to look at, I think I know the answer to this already, but when we talk about providers for, maybe in the next few weeks, doesn't have to be something that's immediately tomorrow, but geographically representation of providers. I fear I know the answer to this already, but also specialties, I'm thinking specifically of pediatric providers.
Sure.
Just to get a sense of where we may have gaps, where we might want to be maybe focusing some activity and developing potentially some coverage moving forward.
Sure. I think that's a great point. It's something in the context of, as I mentioned, the virtual gateway and the patient portal. If there's going to be any consideration of changing those things, and also engaging providers to make sure that our systems are intuitive to them and that it meets their needs as well as patients and RMDs and caregivers as well. So that's not something we would just do and impose. It's more, we want to have a pretty thoughtful conversation. But I think the geographic diversity is important as well as the specialty. So of those 288 providers, there are 244 are physicians, and I think 44 are certified nurse practitioners. To date, there are no physician assistants that have registered.
Are they authorized yet?
They are,
authorized to be
by law and regulation.
Okay.
And there were 7 new providers that came in the past month. So it's a growing number, but certainly something we want to be mindful and we're sensitive to and continue to track data as best we can.
Thank you. Other questions for the executive director? I guess I have one then, which is how would you assess the morale of the 22 people over at Cannabis? And I'm asking that not with any information, but just transitions like this are oftentimes challenging for the people involved. So I just wanted to get a sense of are they feeling like they're being welcomed in and What's your assessment of kind of the,
I would hope it's good and strong. I think it's, what I hope we've done, and this is, I guess from my own standpoint, my objective has been to be supportive, ask a lot of questions, but in a way or manner that is, demonstrates curiosity and a desire to learn more about what folks do on a day-to-day basis. I think the example I used of the compliance officers and attempting to add some logistics to that, so where folks historically have worked or understand. So a good example would be if folks are out near the Berkshires and working out there for the day, that their next assignment is not down on the Cape. And so I think it's really been, how can we make this more effective for everybody, and how can we be supportive of one another, and also how can we learn from one another. So I hope it's, I guess it's not something, it's something I'm sensitive to, but not something that I've noticed as far as, has there been a difference in or shift in morale since then. But I do think that's something that we are careful about, both again, the medical use of marijuana program as well as the adult use program. But also being careful or deliberate or intentional in the way that we refer to ourselves as a team, and as kind of a family here, so.
other questions or comments?
Commissioner Brett?
Would like to also just acknowledge, I'm sure I'm gonna get this wrong, so I appreciate it, if you help me out here. I just like to acknowledge the two Ericas, Erica Chavelli, our Chief of Staff, Erica White, our Chief People Officer, because I know they've been actively involved in working with the medical program to make them feel like they are members of the team. And so I'm sure I'm missing some people, but I would like to acknowledge those two and anybody else that's been really part of making this work in terms of the transit. Because I think from where I sit, it's been seamless, and it seems to have been very effective. And I'm sure a lot of people besides the two Ericas were involved. But thank you to the two of you, and who knows should we include in that.
It's been an agency-wide effort as far as the, again, so Kyle and the applications team over at the medical department working collaboratively, Patrick B.A. in the LGB overseeing the compliance officers, and then Erica Chavelli and Karen Geegan of the medical use of marijuana program, working with the patient support center folks. So it's really been an agency-wide effort, and if I named anybody, I would be excluding many more, so.
Thanks. Great, anything else?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much for doing that, appreciate that. And as I said, I don't know that we need to do this on a weekly basis or every meeting basis, but I think periodically I'd appreciate continued update, but thank you. Okay, I think we are now in the licensing segment of the program, and we have 3 final licenses to discuss and vote on. All 3 are from Good Chemistry. The first 2 are co-located, if I'm correct, and so we'll do one overview and then 2 votes. Is that correct for the first 2? So first 2 then are Good Chemistry of Massachusetts Incorporated, MC 281557, Tier 4 indoor cultivation, and Good Chemistry of Massachusetts Incorporated, MP 281410, product manufacturing. Mr. Executive Director?
Okay, so as you indicated, the entity here is Good Chemistry of Massachusetts Incorporated. Proposed address of this particular establishment is 20 William Way in Bellingham. Again, the license is being sought on that of a cultivation Tier 4, which authorizes up to 30,000 square feet, and that of a product manufacturer. This licensee was approved for these provisional licenses on November 20th of 2018. Since then, they've paid all their applicable fees. No new information has been reported to the commission staff regarding the organizational structure of this entity, and no new information has been discovered by staff regarding the suitability of the licensee or any of the individuals or entities that were previously disclosed since the issuance of those provisional licenses. Initial inspection occurred at this facility on December 20th. Their establishment was inspected by staff and found to be in full compliance with our regulations. There was no evidence that was discovered during the inspections that indicated the establishment was not in compliance with any of the applicable state and local codes, bylaws, ordinances, or regulations. And again, as a sampling of that inspection, we reviewed security and verified that all security-related requirements are in full compliance with our regulations. That includes reviewing the security of all entrances and exits, the visitor procedures, limited access areas, verification of primary and backup security, the presence of perimeter and duress alarms, and that all of their cameras comply with our requirements. We also evaluate their inventory and storage requirements and found them to be in full compliance. That includes the secure storage of marijuana and marijuana products, the sanitation and pest control measures, and their inventory control and procedures. As this is a cultivation proposal, we reviewed and measured the 4 different rooms that they have. We found that the measurements equated to the following, which is a bedroom of 1,104 square feet, and flowering rooms totaling 2,200 square feet for a grand total of 3,304 square feet, which fits within the license tiers sought. This is also a product manufacturing operation, so we verified that all of their manufacturing-related requirements are in compliance. That includes a proposed product compliance, the safety, sanitation, and security of that area, and those and the various requirements. This is not a retail application, which would be considered next. However, there is a transportation-related element. We verified that their transportation requirements are in compliance. It includes their vehicle and staffing requirements, the communication and reporting requirements, and lastly, their inventory and manifest requirements. Commission staff recommends a final license with the following conditions: that the licensee may cultivate, harvest, possess, prepare, produce, or otherwise acquire marijuana, but shall not sell or otherwise transport marijuana to other establishments until upon inspection receiving permission from the commission to commence their full operations. The licensee is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with our regulations. The licensee remains suitable for licensure, and lastly, that the licensee shall cooperate with and provide information to the commission staff. This licensee has demonstrated their compliance and is therefore recommended for a final license, and as part of that approval, the commission staff seeks authorization to take all necessary steps to review compliance with those conditions and to approve the commencement of their operations.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? If there are no questions or comments, then can I ask for a motion to staff recommendation and review separately, starting with Good Chemistry of Massachusetts Incorporated, MC 281557, Tier 4 indoor cultivation. Can I have a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Can I second? Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Pell?
Abstain.
You abstain. Thank you. Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation on MC 281557, Tier 4 indoor cultivation. Vote of 4 in favor, Commissioners McBride, Doyle, Hoffman, and Flanagan, with Commissioner Connell abstaining. Thank you. Then can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Good Chemistry of Massachusetts, MP 281410, for product manufacturing?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
I'd like to record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Pell?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation for MP 281410, product manufacturing. Vote of 4 in favor, Commissioners McBride, Doyle, Hoffman, and Flanagan, with Commissioner Connell abstaining. Thank you. Next is again Good Chemistry of Massachusetts, MR 281702, retailer. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also Good Chemistry of Massachusetts Incorporated. The proposed address here is 9 Harrison Street in Worcester. The license being sought is that of a retailer. This licensee was approved for provisional licensure at this location on November 20th. Since then, they've paid all applicable license fees. No new information has been reported to the commission regarding the organizational structure of this entity, and no new information has been discovered by staff regarding the suitability of the licensee or any of the individuals or entities that were previously disclosed prior to the issuance of that provisional license. The initial inspection occurred at this facility on December 27th. The licensee's establishment was inspected by staff and found to be in full compliance with our regulations. There was no evidence that was discovered during the inspectional process that indicated the establishment was not in compliance with all of the applicable state and local codes, bylaws, ordinances, or regulations. Again, a review of what we conduct as part of the investigations inspections includes security, and verify that all of their security-related requirements are in compliance. That includes the security of all entrances and exits, visitor procedures, limited access areas, verification of a primary and backup security, presence of perimeter and duress alarms, and that all cameras comply with requirements, the commission's requirements. Their inventory and storage is also evaluated and found to be in full compliance. That is the secure storage of marijuana and marijuana products, sanitation and pest control measures, and inventory control procedures. This is a retail application, so there's no cultivation or product manufacturing aspects to this inspection. Enforcement staff did verify that their retail-related requirements are in compliance. That includes verification of identifications for access, the layout of their sales floor, the availability and contents of adult-use consumer education materials, that appropriate patient consultation area is built out, and there's a plan to ensure that 35% of their inventory is preserved for patients. Their transportation of marijuana and marijuana products operate from their cultivation and product manufacturing location in Bellingham, as previously discussed. The commission staff recommends a final license with the following conditions. The licensee may possess and otherwise acquire marijuana, but shall not sell or otherwise transport marijuana to other establishments until upon inspection receiving permission from the commission to commence their full operations. that the licensee is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. The licensee remains suitable for licensure. The licensee shall cooperate with and provide information to the Commission staff. This licensee has demonstrated their compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and their suitability for licensure and is therefore recommended for a final license. As part of the approval of their final license, the Commission staff seeks authorization to take all necessary steps and actions to review their compliance with those conditions and to approve the commencement of their operations.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Then can I please have a motion to, sorry,
I'd like to-
Commissioner Brett, I apologize.
That's fine. I would like to add the condition that we have discussed previously about notification of any changes in operations minutes.
I'm sorry. Make that, just want to apologize, I'll make sure that happens going forward. Any other comments or questions? Then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve staff recommendation for New Hampshire, Massachusetts, incorporated MR 281702, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner McBride. Can I have such a motion, please? Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner McBride made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Pennell?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the Commission approved staff recommendation for MR 281702 with a vote of 4 in favor, Commissioners McBride, Doyle, Hoffman, and Flanagan, with Commissioner Fowler abstaining. Thank you. So that's it for final, great, and is Mr. Hoffman going to lead us through the provisionals?
Yes,
Even
sir.
after I insulted him?
Morale is high.
I'm doing my best to destroy it, great. So we had 6, starting with Beacon Compassion Commission, Tyler, you are recusing yourself for Beacon Compassion, is that correct?
Yes.
As always, don't go too far. And Ms. Parkin, these 2 are co-located, so we do 1 review and 2 votes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we're now discussing Beacon Compassion Incorporated, MCN 281378, Tier 4 indoor cultivation, and Beacon Compassion Incorporated, MPN 281517, which is product manufacturing. Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this is Beacon Compassion Incorporated. The proposed location is 30 Franklin R. McCabe Road, located in Attleboro. The 2 licenses being sought are Tier 4 cultivation indoor operation, which allows up to 30,000 square feet of canopy, and a product manufacturing license. The applicant is not an applicant or a licensee for any other adult use marijuana establishment. The 2 individuals associated with this establishment are Catherine Carnetti and Stephen Angelo, both as executives. There is 1 entity other than the applicant itself that's associated with the establishment. It's BC Resources LLC, and they are a capital contributor. This applicant is an R&D priority applicant, and the proposed location here will be co-located with the R&D business in Attleboro. The R&D currently has a provisional certificate of registration. The applicant did secure a host community agreement on June 18th. The applicant conducted a community outreach meeting on April 23rd. The commission did receive a municipal response from Attleboro on December 12th stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. The applicant submitted a positive impact plan, which included the following: conduct industry-specific educational seminars, provide financial mentoring services, implement hiring protocols that prioritize the hiring of individuals from areas of disproportionate impact, host in-store donation drives, and lastly, partner with and support organizations that provide civil rights, jail diversion, and restorative justice programs. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals or entities associated with this application, and there were also none of the usual disclosures. The applicant did submit a timeline, and they state that their facility will require construction. All building and renovations will be complete by June of 2019, and the establishment estimates that it could be fully operational in July of 2019. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day. The applicant did submit all of the required summaries of plans, policies, and procedures, and they were deemed to be substantially compliant with the Commission's regulations. The applicant submitted a diversity plan, which included the following: target individuals for hiring initiatives by developing new partnerships with culturally diverse institutions, colleges, organizations, and churches, and explore outlets to reduce the barriers for individuals with diverse backgrounds to ensure they have access to opportunities within the company. As this was a cultivation application, the applicant did submit a cultivation plan that demonstrated their ability to comply with the Commission's regulations. As it's also a product manufacturing application, they did submit a list of their proposed items that they plan on producing, which includes hash, bubble hash, rosin, shatter, butter, kefir, vape pen oil, wax, butter, taffy, live resin, sauce, distillate, and Rick Simpson oil. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. First, that final license is subject to inspection to ensure compliance with the Commission's regulations. Second, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the applicable state laws and local codes. The applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to Commission staff. And lastly, the provisional license is subject to the payment of the appropriate license fee. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Commissioner Flanagan?
Mr. Chairman, I have additional provisions that I'd like to put on their application. Looking at the disproportionate impact plan, I feel that we need to have more detail as to what their plans are. I do, I recognize this may have come before the guidance that we had submitted online to applicants, so I wanna make sure that that's well known. But under their disproportionate impact plan, it says that they're going to conduct outreach to the community, and it says identify and support at least one charitable organization. It doesn't tell us how many times, how often, I'd like more information on that. And then when it comes to programs and continuing efforts, it says conducting industry-specific educational seminars in a certain area. Again, how often is that going to happen, and how's that going to impact the community? And then also it says partnering and supporting organizations. I'd like to know, what their plans are for that. And I believe that is it for this.
Thank you, Commissioner Flanagan. Commissioners McBride or Doyle, any questions or comments? Thank you. Then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve, and we're going to do this separately, approve the staff recommendation to issue a provisional license to Beacon Compassion Incorporated, MCN 281378 for Tier 4 indoor cultivation, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. We'll take a voice vote. Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman? Aye. Let the record show that the Commission approved the staff recommendation to issue provisional license to Beacon Compassion Incorporated, MCN 281378. Voting in favor of Commissioners McBride, Doyle, Hoffman, and Flanagan, with Commissioner Tittle being recused. I'd like to ask then for an additional motion to approve the staff recommendation on Beacon Compassion Incorporated, MPN 281517, product manufacturing, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
I'd like to let Commissioner Doyle made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. Again, let's take a voice vote. Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman? Aye. Let the record show that the Commission approved the staff recommendation for the Compassion NPN 281517. Voting in favor, Commissioner McBride, Doyle, Hoffman, and Flanagan, with Commissioner Tittle recusing himself. Thank you. Commissioner Tittle? Next, we have two from. So these are not co-located, so we're going to do them separately, correct? Okay, so let's start with Counter Provisions Incorporated, MRN 281778 Retail. Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Potvin. Sorry, yeah, because something I need to announce the world. My apologies, I have a little sleep deprived, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Potvin.
As you stated, the applicant here is Canna Provisions Incorporated. The proposed location is 380R Dwight Street, located in Holyoke. The license being sought here is a retail license. The applicant does have an additional application that will be considered next for another retail location. The individuals associated with this application include Eugene McCain as owner and partner, and then Eric Williams and Megan Sanders as managers. There are no other entities other than the applicant that appear to have any direct or indirect authority over this establishment. This applicant is a general applicant. They did secure a host community agreement on May 10th. They conducted a community outreach meeting on May 30th. The commission did receive a municipal response from Holyoke on January 29th stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. The applicant did submit a positive impact plan, which included the following: contribute $5,000 annual donation to South Holyoke Neighborhood Association's VERT Fund, make other monetary donations to the Social Equity Training and Technical Assistance Fund and other local organizations, They committed to hiring around 50% of the establishment's employees from Holyoke and Pittsfield. They plan on utilizing vendors, contractors, and builders from Holyoke and/or Pittsfield. And they plan on developing an incubator and accelerator program to assist small business efficiently, so that they can efficiently start and operate marijuana businesses. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals or the entity associated with this application. There were, however, some disclosures of past civil or criminal actions, occupational license issues, or marijuana-related business interests in other jurisdictions. The applicant did state that it could be operational by July of 2019. The proposed hours of operation for this location are Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The applicant did submit all of the required summaries of plans, policies, and procedures, and they were all deemed to be substantially compliant with the Commission's regulations. The applicant submitted a diversity plan, which included the following: institute a blind hiring policy that anonymizes demographic-related information that could lead to bias, promote the establishment's diversity hiring policy on recruitment websites, social media, and traditional hiring platforms, utilize and contract with diverse suppliers, contractors, and wholesale partners, and institute hiring practices that will hire individuals from local veteran organizations. As this is a retail application, they did submit a plan for obtaining marijuana and marijuana products. They plan on contracting with other adult use licensed establishments. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. First, that final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. Secondly, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes. Third, the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to Commission staff. And lastly, the provisional license is subject to the license fee payment. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Parkman.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Flanagan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add additional conditions relative to the plan to positively impact the areas of disproportionate impact. Can Provisions has multiple goals in their impact plan, which I applaud. However, under their employment goal, it says they're going to make every effort to provide meaningful participation. I'd like to know how they're going to do that. I know that they have named certain entities that they're going to try to work with, and that they've begun the process, but I think it just needs to be spelled out a little bit more, so that when it comes time for relicensure, we can take a look at that. Also, under the donations section, Girls Inc. of Holyoke is listed. I'd like to make sure that we have a letter from Girls Inc. saying that they will receive the funds, given that we've had questions in the past of whether or not the charters allow funds from marijuana establishments to be accepted. And also, the piece of the social justice leader, I think I've mentioned this in other areas, and I know another commissioner has as well. In the first year, if you're not attaining that, how do we then gauge that later on? And so I think that we just have to need to be aware of the fact that while they say they want to attain it, it hasn't been attained yet. And under the suppliers, contractors, and partners, they state that they are going to try to engage with marijuana establishments that have attained the social justice rating. Again, if they haven't, is there a plan B? Because I think that that's important to know what the plan B is. So with those conditions, I'd like to have that added.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner McBride.
I just had a question about the nature of the disclosure under suitability review. Is that a reference to the agreement that was reached with OCPF by one of the members listed on the license relative to a fine that was paid in the amount of about $125,000? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Were there any other disclosures or any other suitability issues that arose?
There were other disclosures, but there were no suitability issues that were found.
Okay, did this go to suitability review committee?
Did not.
Are there other questions? Then let me ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation for Cannabis Provisions Incorporated, MRN 281778, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Tidal. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm sorry, it's no motion. Let the record show the Commission unanimously approve the staff recommendation, subject to additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan for Cannabis Provisions Incorporated, MRN 201-778 retail. Next, another Cannabis Provisions Incorporated license application for MRN 281-796 retail. Mr. Parkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the applicant here is again Cannabis Provisions Incorporated. The proposed location is 220 Housatonic Street, located in Lee. The license being sought here is a retail license. They are the same individuals associated with this application as the previous one. The applicant here did secure a host community agreement with members of the Lee community on July 17th. The applicant conducted a community outreach meeting on July 18th. The commission did send a municipal notice to the town of Lee on November 8th, 2018. To date, the commission has not received a response. The applicant here did submit a positive impact plan. It's the same positive impact plan as previously discussed. Suitability review was the same as was previously discussed as well. The applicant did submit a timeline for this location, and they do plan on being operational by July of 2019. The proposed hours of operation for this facility are Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The applicant did submit all the required summaries of plans, policies, and procedures. The summaries were determined to be substantially compliant with the commission's regulations. The applicant did submit a diversity plan for this location as well as the same plan as was previously discussed. As this is also a retail application, they did submit a plan for obtaining marijuana and marijuana products, and they do plan on contracting with other adult use licensed establishments. Therefore, commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. Final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with commission regulations. Second, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes ordinances. The applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to commission staff. And lastly, that the provisional license is subject to the license fee payment. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. Commissioner Flanagan, do you want the same set of conditions or additional conditions?
The same set of conditions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Doyle?
Mr. Popkin, I'd just like to ask a question surrounding the municipal notice to Lee and whether or not the commission took steps to ensure that in fact the municipality did receive and was aware of the notice.
Yes, Commissioner Doyle, we did send out the original municipal notice on November 8th. There were multiple attempts to reach out, and we did actually contact, I believe, the town administrator of that location, either from the licensing team or our director of government affairs. They were aware of it. We did send the notice a second time, and still have not received a response.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for asking that clarifying question. Any other comments or questions? Then let me ask for a motion to approve staff recommendation for Cannabis Provisions Incorporated MRN 201-796 retail, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan on the previous license application.
So,
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Let's let Commissioner Doyle know the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Tito. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the commission see approve the staff recommendation for MRN 281-796 retail, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Thank you. Ms. Popkin, we have two for In Good Health co-located, so look for ones that have two separate votes. So we're considering MCN 281-273 Tier 4 indoor cultivation and MPN 281-307 manufacturing. Mr. Popkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the applicant here is In Good Health Incorporated. The proposed location is 1200 West Chestnut Street, located in Brockton. The two licenses being sought are cultivation Tier 4, which allows up to 30,000 square feet of canopy, and a product manufacturing license. This applicant is not an applicant or a licensee for any other adult use marijuana establishment. The individuals associated with this application include Andrea Noble and Gerald Freed as owners, David Noble and Barry Kirshner as executives, Robert Taye and Long Nguyen and Jordan Mello all as managers. There is one entity other than the applicant itself that's associated with this application. It's CLS Holdings USA Incorporated, and they are a capital contributor. This applicant is an RMD and an RMD priority applicant, and the proposed adult use location will be co-located with the RMD in Brockton. The applicant did secure a host community agreement on June 18th. They conducted a community outreach meeting on April 23rd. The commission did receive a municipal response on January 11th stating that the applicant was in compliance with local ordinances and bylaws. The applicant did submit a positive impact plan, which included the following: institute hiring practices that will prioritize the hiring of individuals from disproportionate areas with a focus on Brockton, provide donations to several local charities, and lastly, provide donations to the city of Brockton to support local initiatives. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals and entities associated with the application. There were some disclosures of past civil or criminal actions, occupational license issues, or marijuana-related business interests in other jurisdiction. None of those disclosures raised any suitability issues. The applicant did submit a timeline that stated that they could be operational within 4 months from receiving their provisional license. The proposed hours of operation for this location are Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The applicant did submit all of the required summaries of plans, policies, and procedures, and they were all deemed to be substantially compliant with the commission's regulations. The applicant did submit a diversity plan, which included the following: promote equity and diversity at the establishment, have targeted recruitment efforts, and sponsor equity and diversity awareness events. As this is a cultivation application, they did submit a cultivation plan that demonstrated the ability to comply with the commission's regulations. As it's also a product manufacturing application, they did submit a summary of the products they plan on producing, which includes the following: hash, Rick Simpson oils, flavored chews, lozenges, capsules, tincture spray, infused food oils, dressings, chocolates, topical balms, and transdermal patches. Therefore, commission staff do recommend issuing of provisional licenses with the following condition: final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the commission's regulations. Final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state and local codes, ordinances, and bylaws. The applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to commission staff. And lastly, that the provisional license is subject to the license fee payment. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for provisional licensure.
Thank you, Mr. Blackman. Commissioner Flanagan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a lot of concern with regards to the plan to positively impact areas of disproportionate impact. I think that there are very few details that I'd like to have submitted. First, I want to make sure that they have letters from the different organizations that they've donated to stating that they'll accept the money, given that one of them is the Boys and Girls Club. Also, there's a paragraph in this plan that says that the revenues will have a substantial impact on the city and will boost local funding. I'd like to know more of where those revenues are going, what different organizations that they're giving to. And then also the hiring that they said that they're going to do. What is their plan to continue to their hiring practices? What their other hiring practices to prioritize people from disproportionate areas?
Anything else? Commissioner Todd?
Echoing those concerns, I'd like to add a condition that the disproportionate impact plan and the diversity plan both be rewritten in accordance with the revised guidance and reporting. And then on item 18, the summary of products to be produced, Rick Simpson oil strikes me as a brand, and I would not like to see brand names included in the product description.
Anything else, Commissioner? Commissioner? No?
Can you just talk a little bit about CLS Holdings as a capital contributor and the meaning of that? My understanding is that there was a $5 million loan that was made to the business that represents 98% of capital, and that there's also an option to buyer. Can you talk a little bit about how we in licensing sort of checked on that and the due diligence?
Absolutely. For any entity that's contributing 10% or more of the total capital, the applicant is also required to supply documentation detailing what the terms of either that loan or the conditions of the agreement that they have. Currently, the document that was submitted and provided to the commission in the application shows that the initial $5 million loan is a loan that will require repayment and does not actually give any ownership or control rights to this entity.
Any other questions?
We'll take two separate votes, starting with In Good Health Incorporated, MCN 281273, Tier 4 indoor cultivation. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve staff recommendations subject to the joint requests of Commissioners Title and Planning and to add additional conditions. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission has approved staff recommendation for MCN 281273, Tier 4 indoor cultivation. I would next like to ask for a motion to approve staff recommendation for In Good Health NPN 281307, product manufacturing, again, subject to the additional request for conditions from Commissioners McBride, or Commissioners Title and Flanagan. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission has approved staff recommendations subject to those additional conditions. Once again, my thanks, Mr. Bachman, for your hard work, regardless of what I said earlier. Appreciate it. That is it for additional licenses, am I correct? So let me do a time check. It is 1:07. You want to find the break? And we are on break until, I'm going to give us an 8-minute break. We're on break till 1:15.